Hello again. Thank you for tuning in to episode 10 of The Doc is In. This episode is going to actually begin a three-part series that's going to be titled Embracing My Brokenness. Um, I want to discuss some of the mental health issues that I deal with personally or have dealt with personally. That way, I can hopefully help someone else who may be dealing with the same thing, but maybe doesn't know what to call it, or you're dealing with it and you don't know how to get yourself out of it. Always remember that, you know, this segment, this series, it doesn't substitute you going to a mental health professional and getting the help that you need. I'm just hoping to be a beacon. Maybe I can point you in the right direction. All right? So, without any further ado, I want to talk to you a little bit about depression. Um, I want to go into some personal things, but I want to start off with just some basics about depression. Everyone has this concept that I see by and large that depression just means, okay, I'm sad. I'm having a sad day. I'm crying at, United Negro College Fund commercials, are those darn, ESPCA commercials with Sarah McLachlan in the background. There's a lot more to it than that, and I want to kind of go over that. So when we're talking about depression, there's several different types of depression, but I'll just give you some of the more common types. The most common type of depression is always probably going to be major depressive disorder. That's what people know. Clinically, it means that you have a clinically significant level of sadness that is going to be present for usually longer than 2 weeks, but it's usually actually longer than that. And it's a certain severity of those symptoms that would qualify to be major depressive disorder. There's another one called persistent dysthymic disorder, and that would be you're depressed all the time. So it's like saying that if I look at 2 years, out of 2 years, it'll probably at least 18 months of the 2 years you were depressed. Bipolar depression refers to depression that comes with a series of mania and depressive symptoms. So that's your highs and your lows. So a lot of people take like a mood swing and then think, okay, well, this person's bipolar, and very likely they're not. It could just be, anything from adjustment disorder to any number of things that happen rapidly. When we're talking about bipolar depression, we're talking about that the fact that they're generally depressed, but the depression is going to show up either in a mania or it's going to show in like a depression. So we'll go into that a little bit later. Postpartum, for the ladies out there, postpartum usually occurs right after you've had a baby. And they try to identify that in labor and delivery. So usually your nurses there are going to ask you those questions like, the how are you feelings? Are you feeling anything like depression? If you're not bonding well with your baby, they're going to try and find out why, like what's going on, because they want to make sure that postpartum is not what's going on there. Another one that women tend to get is premenstrual dysphoric disorder. Premenstrual dysphoric disorder. So it's basically just saying the mood changes that you have during your time of the month. Seasonal affective disorder is also a really big one. For most people, the change of seasons, usually this occurs more in the winter and around the holiday season. As you shift to winter, if you think about it, it's darker, it gets dark quicker outside. For most people, it's holidays and, remembering family members that have made basically passed, or things like that. And so in the winter months, you'll notice that more people deal with depressive symptoms than in summer months. When it's hot, it's bright, it's a lot more vibrant. Atypical depression is another. Those are usually depressive episodes that have like major reactive moods. Like, if you're going off the handle for every little thing and you're noticing like I'm eating like anything in sight, I'm sleeping all the time, atypical depression might be it for you. I've been asked this a lot. People have asked like, well, what causes depression? Honestly, it could be any number of things. A lot of depression can be genetic, believe it or not. Um, the way you eat makes a difference. Your physical health, and I'm going to go into that as a part of my own depressive symptoms. Drugs, stress, just that chemistry imbalance in your brain. All of these are reasons why someone could be depressed. Personally, I dealt with depression for a large chunk of my life. After my mom passed away, I, you know, I had what everyone called, oh, well, you're just blue, you're just down. And I believed it as such. I mean, all the adults around me are saying you're just blue. So, hey, why not? I'm just blue. I'm just, a little down. But it was more than that. Looking back, it was more than that. I had just lost my mom. And again, I remember one specific incident, and it was actually the day of her funeral. I remember walking into the church, and I remember like I was at the front of the church, like not quite in the I don't know what you call it, like the vestibule of the church, but I was outside the front door. And I remember again my grandmother, my dad's mom, and again she meant no harm in doing this, but she came to me and she was like, "You have to be strong. You can't cry, you can't do this crying. You have to be strong for your dad." And I remember like thinking like, "Hey, I just lost my mom." Like, oh, okay, so sucked it up, did my best to hold myself together, and went into the church. Um, for the next several years, I just things just didn't feel right. Like I felt I was down a lot. I was eating more, even more than normal, for that time. But the catch of it all was it's like my sister was home and my dad was there as well. So it was okay because I had people in the house. When things went kind of weird was probably around 9 or 10 years old because my sister went off to college, as would have been expected, and it was me and my dad all the time. So my dad worked in an oil field, and so he would be gone for the bulk of the day. So we are talking anywhere from 4 to 6 a.m. He leaves and he comes back somewhere around 5 to 7 or 8 at night. So he'd be gone quite a bit. And honestly, as a kid, never wanted to do things that made me feel like I was kind of like bothering my dad because I always felt like, man, he works so hard and he's at work all day. And when he gets home, I know he's tired and I don't want him to have to worry about me. So I try to learn to be as self sufficient as possible, like, making sure that I'm up on time, going to school, making sure that, when I got home, I could cook for myself or I could do whatever I needed to do for me, because I just never wanted to give him something else that he had to do when he got home. Um, it became difficult to really navigate or to figure out what was going on with me. In hindsight, I mean, I literally would just eat my emotions all day long. It just was what I was doing. I didn't think about it then, but yeah, it's what was happening. And as I was getting bigger and I was, dealing with the physical health effects of it, not only like the social things, but the obvious like poor nutrition, the fact that I would get sick so often, like colds. If it was a cold or flu season, I was gonna be down. It was a given. Um, but I never correlated at that time what was going on with depression. I mean, I grew up in a family of faith. So, if you were down, you went to church, you prayed harder about it, and you moved forward. Um, the hard part about, and I'll go into this later as far as faith goes, but you can pray for a lot of things, but sometimes it's very hard to pray away that type of feeling. Um, I remember, and I can remember years in a row where literally I would pray when I would go to bed at night. My prayer was, God, I just don't want to wake up in the morning. Like, if you would just take me away, I'm okay. Like, I don't want to. I was never actively suicidal. I was never the type to say I'm going to hurt myself or anything like that. But my prayer at that time, and I remember this so distinctly, my prayer was, God, just make it so that I don't wake up in the morning. Um, I always felt like suicide was a selfish thing to do, to take your own life and leave other people to deal with it. But I felt that if God were to just, take me, then that was okay. That was totally cool. Um, and I remember probably going through that feeling for the larger part of my teenage years. And the thing about it is, like, for my family, I would never show that to them, because again, I never wanted to be the kid that everybody worried about. Now I see a lot of kids who do things like say, "I'm going to kill myself for attention," but back then, it's not what you did. So I would hide mine. So I was always joking, always laughing, always polite, because I mean, again, it's how I was raised. I was Southern, or I am Southern, so it's just how I was raised. So I just also want to point out, like, that was my situation. But for a lot of people, that's not their situation. It looks different. And I need people to understand that for men and for women, depression actually looks very different generally. Men tend to externalize their depression. So it's a lot of anger and a lot of placing blame or paranoia, or it's I'm gonna pick a fight because I need somewhere to put all this. It's like that sense of I'm trying to maintain controls, or I'm gonna like try and shame others, or I'm going to externalize my internal shame. Um, for myself, one of the biggest things was a fear of failure. I like for most people, if they didn't do that well on a test or something, they didn't care. For me, I was fearful of failing. I just felt like if my dad goes to work every day and he has to work this hard, then I need to go and I need to work 3 or 4 times as hard in school because I need to win. I cannot fail at this. And to this day, to some extent, I still internalize that fear of failure. Um, some other things include self medication, especially for men. Self medication through drugs, generally for men. For women, the self medication is usually food. Um, Overusing internet, TV, email. So when you see guys and they're just like so immersed in the TV all the time, or they're so immersed in their phones and such, that could actually be a depressive symptom. With women, you get more of the traditional TV style depression. You get the I'm anxious, I'm sad, I'm feeling worthless. They're avoiding everything and everybody. They I'm sleeping all the time now, and that's the one that's really interesting because for women, oversleeping is the issue. For men, it's I can't sleep. I can't sleep through the night. That's always a sign of depression for men. Um, Women also have guilt issues, usually big guilt issues. They have problems with success, not only their own, but with the success of others. So if you have that friend that's always like, she thinks she's somebody because she's doing this, or they invert it and be like, oh well, what you think you too good for me, that kind of thing. That can be depression, believe it or not. Also, that sense of just withdrawing from everyone. Um, these are all things that, like, I just kind of want to get people to understand. Depression doesn't just look the same. It's not a cookie cutter thing for everybody. It's not always crime, because I'm sure if you ask most of my family and my friends, the people that saw me on a daily basis, weekly basis, none of them would have ever known how deep in depression I was during that time. For me, one of the best things that helped me to break away from depression was changing literally almost all of my habits because I decided that I wanted to drop weight. So in my first attempt, I lost almost 200 pounds. From my heaviest, I was probably around like 530 pounds maybe. And I'm gonna do a video about weight loss, and we'll talk about that more. But at my heaviest, I was probably about 530 pounds. And what happened was I decided that I needed to do something to lose weight. So once I changed my diet, I stopped drinking. Um, Gave up alcohol completely, stopped drinking. I started working out. I actually kind of got addicted to working out. I was like working out 2 to 3 hours a day. walking 6, 7 miles, because it just boosted my serotonin, and like, my serotonin levels, my norepinephrine levels, everything went up. And so at that point, it's like my brain chemistry was changing, and I didn't even know it, but it was like I felt so clear headed. I felt so happy during that time. Um, I tried to reduce stress wherever I could, and really just focus on how I was feeling. I began to put emphasis on how I was feeling. I would journal and check in the morning, like, how am I feeling today? Like, am I happy? Am I sad? Like, put a feeling to where you are. Like, so often we say I'm good, but what is good? Like, good for one person is I'm a millionaire, I'm wealthy, things are well. For the next person, good is I woke up this morning. Like, figure out what your good is. Figure out what happy means, what sad means, what, angry, scared, whatever that is. Figure out what that is for you, because when you do, it's easier to be able to acknowledge a problem and then fix it. Um, like I said, for me, exercise was a big one. Getting healthier was a big one in terms of helping me to get past the depressive symptoms. I took up boxing briefly. That was really great because it helped me to work out my anger. It helped me to work out those angry feelings. So boxing was definitely a really, really big one. Um, like I said, journaling, and honestly, helping others. Like, when I began to pour myself into helping others, and I remember at this time my church was doing Angel Tree. It was right around Christmas time, and I just threw myself into this so wholeheartedly. Like, I made it just a personal mission that I was gonna fulfill more angels than anybody else in the ministry, because for me, it felt so good to be able to think, like, hey man, like, I'm gonna help a kid have Christmas who may not have had it otherwise. Like, I remember I didn't buy myself anything that year, and I was like, I'm gonna just totally like buy as many of these as I can. Like, I just want to make sure that somebody else had a great Christmas. So I encourage you, if you're feeling depressed, if you're feeling down, throw yourself into something that's positive, that helps others. You'll be amazed at how your levels of gratitude just kick up. Working out definitely always helps. Um, but if you are in a space where you really feel like, I just don't know if I can make it another day, reach out for help. 911. If you have to dial 911, dial 911. The number to the National Suicide Hotline is 1-800-273-8255 or 1-800-273-TALK. Get to help, okay? Get some help. Tell somebody, a relative, a friend, a family member, anybody. Don't go through what you're going through alone. You don't have to. There are a lot of people who understand and who want to help you. We're all rooting for you to win. You are worth it, okay? You are worth it. You are enough as you are, and you are so worth the help, the energy that it'll take to help you get back to the place where you're happy. We all deserve happiness. Don't let anyone rob you of that. Love yourself and love somebody else. We'll all be better for it. Thank you.